We've all been told to pay attention to how people show up in our lives, but the truth is we don't always want to see what's right in front of us. Red flags are rarely bright and obvious. Often they're subtle, woven into words, silences, and small choices. And yet these signals tell us whether the person beside us is truly safe, trustworthy, and worthy of our energy. One of the clearest signs of someone's character is how they handle their mistakes. Watch closely. Do they pause, acknowledge their part, and take ownership? Or do they twist the story, point fingers, and insist it's never their fault? When a person refuses to take responsibility, what they're really saying is, I'd rather protect my ego than protect this relationship. And that's not just a small issue. It's the root of chaos, mistrust, and emotional exhaustion. Here's why this red flag is so dangerous. It creates an uneven playing field. If you're always the one apologizing, always the one fixing, always the one making things right, the balance of power shifts. You become the caretaker, and they become the critic. That's not connection, that's control. It erodes trust. Accountability is the soil where trust grows. Without it, you never know if what they say is true. You start doubting your own perception because every mistake somehow turns back on you. It blocks growth. We all make mistakes, that's human. But mistakes can be teachers only if we admit them. A person who refuses responsibility stays stuck in the same patterns, dragging everyone around them into the same cycle. At its core, refusing responsibility is about fear, fear of shame, fear of being seen as flawed, fear of losing control. But here's the truth. Taking responsibility doesn't make us weaker. It makes us trustworthy. It's the people who can say, I was wrong and I'll do better, who create relationships built on respect and safety. So if the person next to you never takes responsibility, pay attention, because it means you'll always be carrying the weight for two. And no matter how much love, patience, or forgiveness you pour in, you can't build a healthy connection on one-sided accountability. One of the most painful experiences in any relationship is when your feelings are brushed aside, minimized, or outright mocked. It may not seem dramatic at first. Maybe you share something vulnerable and they roll their eyes. Maybe you say, that hurt me, and they respond with, you're too sensitive. Maybe you express worry and they laugh it off as if you're making a big deal out of nothing. But here's the truth. When someone dismisses your feelings, they're sending a clear message. Your inner world doesn't matter here. This is dangerous because it creates emotional invisibility. Over time, when you're repeatedly told your feelings don't matter, you begin to silence yourself. You stop speaking up. You stop sharing. You stop expecting to be heard. That silence isn't peace, it's loneliness, even in the middle of a relationship. It erodes your self-trust. If every time you share an emotion, it gets denied or belittled, you start questioning your own reality. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe it really wasn't that bad. This is how people lose touch with their own instincts, making it easier for others to control them. It shuts down intimacy. True connection requires vulnerability. If someone cannot hold space for your feelings, whether they understand them or not, they're closing the door to emotional closeness. Without that, the relationship becomes surface level at best and harmful at worst. Now let's be clear. Someone doesn't have to agree with you to respect you. Validation doesn't mean they feel the same way. It means they honor the fact that you feel the way you do. A caring person can say, I don't see it that way, but I can see why you'd feel that. That simple acknowledgement makes all the difference. When your feelings are consistently dismissed, what's really happening is a refusal to share emotional responsibility. They're choosing comfort over compassion and control over connection. And if you're not careful, you'll start shrinking yourself to fit into the small space they allow. But your emotions are not a burden. They are signals guiding you toward truth, safety, and meaning. Anyone who tries to silence that voice isn't protecting you. They're protecting themselves from discomfort. So if the person next to you consistently dismisses your feelings, understand this. It's not about being too sensitive. It's about being in the presence of someone who cannot or will not meet you with respect. And that's a red flag you cannot afford to ignore. Words are easy. Promises cost nothing. Declarations of love, loyalty, or big dreams can sound beautiful in the moment, but they only mean something when they're backed by consistent action. One of the clearest red flags in any relationship is when someone's words shine, but their behavior tells a completely different story. This shows up in small and big ways. Maybe they say, "You can always count on me," but disappear when you actually need them. Maybe they talk about respecting your boundaries, but repeatedly push past them. Maybe they make promises about changing, growing, or showing up better, but you've been waiting for months or years for that change to arrive. Here's why this matters. Words without action create false hope. You start living in a cycle of waiting. For the apology that never turns into change, for the promise that never materializes, for the dream that only exists in conversation. That waiting keeps you stuck, investing in potential instead of reality. It erodes trust. Trust isn't built by grand speeches, it's built by small, reliable acts. When someone keeps talking without following through, you stop believing them. And once belief is gone, intimacy crumbles. It reveals character. Consistency is the ultimate proof of who someone is. Anyone can put on a performance when it benefits them, but sustained action requires integrity. If their effort only exists in words, what they've revealed is not care, but convenience. At its root, this red flag is about integrity. A person who talks but doesn't act is protecting their image, not the relationship. They want to look good, to sound good, to be seen as good, but they're not willing to do the hard, often uncomfortable work of being good. And here's the truth. Love isn't measured in what people say when the lights are on. Love is measured in what they do when no one's watching. Commitment isn't what someone promises you in a moment of emotion. It's what they prove to you in the quiet, ordinary moments of life. So pay attention. If the person next to you constantly talks but rarely acts, believe their pattern, not their words. Because a promise without action is just a performance, and you deserve more than a performance. You deserve presence, consistency, and truth. Guilt is one of the most manipulative tools a person can use. Healthy guilt is meant to guide us. It's that inner compass that nudges us to repair when we've truly hurt someone. But when someone weaponizes guilt, it stops being about connection and starts being about control. Here's what it often looks like. You say, "I can't today, I'm tired, babe." And suddenly they respond with, "After everything I've done for you, you can't do this one thing?" Or maybe you finally draw a boundary and they sigh dramatically, painting themselves as the victim. "I guess I'm just not important to you anymore." These moments may feel small, but they are powerful. And repeated often enough, they can leave you doubting yourself, second-guessing your choices, and carrying a weight that was never yours to begin with. Why is this a red flag? It steals your freedom. Guilt tripping turns every choice into a test of loyalty. Instead of deciding based on your needs and values, you start deciding based on how to avoid someone else's disappointment. That's not love, that's coercion. It erodes self-worth. When someone repeatedly makes you feel guilty for protecting your energy, you begin to equate self-care with selfishness. You start believing that your needs are always less important, that your voice doesn't matter. Over time, this erodes your sense of self. It breeds resentment, not closeness. Guilt may pressure you into compliance, but it never creates genuine connection. You may say yes, but deep inside, a wall builds. Instead of gratitude and love, what grows is quiet resentment. At its heart, guilt as a weapon is about control. It's an attempt to keep you small, obedient, and available on demand. But here's the truth. Relationships rooted in guilt are never safe because guilt doesn't create love. it creates fear. Healthy relationships, on the other hand, respect boundaries. They allow for no. Oh, without punishment. They honor the truth that your worth isn't measured by how much you sacrifice. Someone who truly cares doesn't want you to serve them at the cost of yourself. They want you whole, honest, and free. So if the person next to you constantly turns your boundaries into burdens or your independence into betrayal, understand this: it's not love, it's manipulation. And no amount of guilt should keep you chained to a relationship that silences your freedom. Some people seem to carry chaos with them wherever they go. If there isn't a problem, they'll create one. If there isn't an argument, they'll spark one. If there isn't a storm, they'll stir the waters until the waves rise. This is what it means when someone thrives on drama. They don't just encounter conflict, they need it to feel alive. At first, you may mistake it for passion. The intensity, the storytelling, the way their life always feels like a movie, exciting, unpredictable, even magnetic. But over time, the shine wears off. You begin to notice the cost, the constant exhaustion, the feeling that peace never lasts, the way their chaos quietly spills into your world. Why is this a red flag? Drama feeds on energy. People who thrive on drama often use it as a way to draw attention and control the emotional climate of a room. They feed off reactions. When you get pulled into their chaos, you're giving them the power to set the tone of your life. It keeps relationships unstable. Drama prevents safety. People who can't celebrate your wins are trapped in comparison. Your joy threatens them because it reminds them of what they don't have or what they haven't pursued. Instead of using your success as inspiration, they use it as a mirror for their own dissatisfaction. But here's the truth: your wins are not meant to be hidden. They are meant to be honored, celebrated, and shared with those who have the capacity to stand beside you, not behind you. Healthy relationships are built on mutual support. When you rise, they rise with you. When you shine, they don't shrink. They reflect your light back. They don't compete with you. They stand beside you, proud to witness your growth. So if the person next to you can't celebrate your wins, ask yourself, is this someone who truly wants to see me thrive, or someone who only feels safe when I stay small? Because the truth is, anyone who cannot clap for you in your moment of joy will never be able to carry you in your moment of need. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are doors that teach others how to treat you. They're the invisible lines that protect your peace, your values, your time, and your dignity. When someone respects those boundaries, they're showing you respect. But when someone repeatedly ignores them, dismisses them, or pushes against them, they're showing you something else: entitlement. This red flag often shows up in subtle ways at first. Maybe you say, I need a little space tonight, and they show up anyway. Maybe you say, please don't joke about that, and they laugh, insisting you're overreacting. Maybe you tell them what you're not comfortable with, and they respond with, relax, it's not a big deal. But here's the truth: it is a big deal. Because every time a boundary is ignored, what's really being said is, my comfort matters more than your safety. My desires matter more than your needs. Why is this such a dangerous red flag? It erodes your sense of safety. Boundaries are the guardrails that keep relationships safe. Without them, you're constantly exposed, constantly vulnerable, and constantly forced to negotiate your well-being. That's not love, it's control disguised as closeness. It silences your voice. When your boundaries are ignored again and again, you begin to doubt yourself. You start asking, am I being too much, too demanding, too sensitive? That self-doubt is exactly what boundary breakers want. It makes you easier to control. It reveals a lack of respect. Respect isn't about agreement, it's about acknowledgement. Someone doesn't have to understand your boundary fully to honor it. If they refuse to do so, what they're really showing you is a disregard for your humanity. At its core, ignoring boundaries is about power. It's about testing how far you'll bend, how much you'll tolerate, and how small you'll make yourself to avoid conflict. And the longer it goes unchecked, the more that dynamic grows. But here's the truth. Your boundaries are not a burden. They are a declaration of self-worth. They say, I know what I need to stay whole, and I will not apologize for protecting it. Anyone who truly values you will respect those limits, even when it's inconvenient. Because love isn't proven by how much someone takes from you. It's proven by how much they honor what you need to stay grounded. So if the person next to you ignores your boundaries, take it seriously. It's not a misunderstanding, it's a choice. And it's a choice that tells you everything you need to know about whether this person belongs in your life. The truth is, red flags rarely show up in neon lights. They're quiet, often subtle, and easy to overlook when we want to believe the best in someone. But ignoring them comes at a cost to your peace, your dignity, and your future. We've walked through 7 of the clearest warning signs. The person who never takes responsibility, who dismisses your feelings, who talks but never acts, who wields guilt as a weapon, who thrives on drama, who can't celebrate your wins, and who ignores your boundaries. Each of these on its own is concerning. Together, they paint a picture of someone who is not safe for your heart. Here's what I want you to remember. These red flags are not about judging others. They're about protecting yourself. They're about recognizing when the person next to you cannot meet you with honesty, respect, and care. Because you deserve more than survival. You deserve relationships where responsibility is shared, where your feelings are honored, where actions match words, where boundaries are respected, and where your joy is not only safe, but celebrated. Pay attention to the person beside you, but more importantly, pay attention to yourself, to the way your body feels around them, to the way your spirit responds, to the voice inside that whispers when something isn't right. Your intuition is not a weakness, it's wisdom. And the most courageous thing you can do is to trust it. At the end of the day, it's not about how many people you allow beside you. It's about allowing the right ones, because life is too short and your heart is too precious to spend it in the company of red flags disguised as love,